seen them perform before. Tonight they are here in our midst, and
His Excellency Noma Library. Wow. The Dean of the Middle East Diplomatic Missions, the Ambassador of State of Palestine, His Excellency Mr. Abdel Fattah al-Fattah, the Ambassador of the Republic of Lebanon, His Excellency Mr. Maher Pierre, the Ambassador of the State of Qatar, His Excellency the High Commissioner of the Ambassador of the Republic of Korea, His Excellency Ibrahim the High Commissioner of the Republic of Namibia, His Excellency Ms. Delma Ashipala,
China.
the Ambassador of the Russian Federation, His Excellency Mr. Sergei
Where are you?
Ambassador of the Republic of Sudan, His Excellency Mr. Mohammed Abdulrahman Yassin Mohammed, the High Commissioner of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Excellency Mrs. Frances Virginia the Ambassador of the Republic of Turkey, and Excellency Mrs. Ogden Wilson.
It is a real pleasure for my wife, Rebecca, the First Lady, and I to welcome Your Excellencies to Peduase Lodge, the presidential retreat in the Aburi Hills, and to this annual event, which affords us the opportunity to exchange greetings, interact with each other, affirm our shared commitment and dedication to strengthening existing bonds of friendship, cooperation, goodwill, and solidarity between our country and your respective countries and organizations, and to wish you a Happy New Year. For some of you, this gathering happens to be your very first. I congratulate you once again on your appointment, and I hope your stay in Ghana throughout the course of your posting will be both enjoyable and mutually beneficial for our countries and peoples. It is somewhat appropriate that such an important event should take place on the anniversary of one of the seminal days of Ghanaian nationalism, 28th February, when 75 years ago today, the infamous British colonial police officer, Superintendent Imre, ordered the shooting and personally shot at Christiansborg Crossroads Sergeant Ajete, Corporal Atipo, and Private Odate Lamte, members of a group of unarmed ex-servicemen who were on a peaceful march to Christiansborg Castle to present their grievances to the colonial governor, Sir Gerald Hallam Creasy, to demand the fulfillment of the promises made to them by British colonial authorities for their participation in the Second World War. The senseless killings led to widespread anger, disturbances and riots in Accra and around the country, and coupled with the formation of the United Gold Coast Convention, UGCC of blessed memory, the first nationalist party of our country, which had been launched in Salpond some 6 months earlier on 4th August 1947, gave a great boost to the nationalist movement. The colonial authorities held the leaders of the UGCC, the legendary Big Six, J.B. Danquah, Emmanuel Obecha Bilamte, Edward Akufo-Addo, Ebenezer Akwaje, William Oforiatta, and Kwame Nkrumah, responsible for the riots and detained them. Thereafter, the Watson Commission, under the chairmanship of the Scottish solicitor, Aitken Watson, was established by the British Labour government of Prime Minister Clement Attlee to inquire into the circumstances of the riots and make appropriate recommendations for the future of the country. Much of the subsequent architecture leading to the grant of independence on 6 March 1957 was designed from the proceedings and recommendations of the Watson Commission. So, we in contemporary Ghana, who are their beneficiaries, can never forget the ultimate sacrifices of these three great patriots and ex-servicemen. I must at the outset express my appreciation to the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, the Ambassador of the Republic of Burkina Faso, His Excellency Pingara Norma Zachary, for the message he expressed on behalf of the Corps. I also look forward to continued cordial and fruitful relations with you this year, in many more years in the years ahead of us, which I'm certain will help create and spread prosperity and opportunities for all. Excellencies, the events of last year have presented us with unique opportunities and challenges. Just when the countries of the world were dealing with and gradually recovering from the devastating effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, then came the Russia-Ukraine war with its attendant economic, financial, and humanitarian implications. The consequences are turning out to be far-reaching and possibly longer-lasting, especially for countries in Africa, as citizens globally are experiencing rising food and fuel prices, disruption in trade of goods and services, tightening fiscal policies, constraining green transitions, and reduction in the flow of development finance to the African continent. Food grain prices continue to rise even higher as supply disruptions from Russia and Ukraine, actual and anticipated, continue to rock global markets. For instance, the most visible impact of the war on citizens who are on the African continent is the rising fuel and food prices, inflation, and financial instability, given that food and fuel account for over 1/3 of the consumer price index in most African countries. Undeniably, the war has put countries, communities, and households across Africa in very precarious situations and is threatening to derail the development progress in African countries, pushing the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals and the aspirations of the African Union's Agenda 2063 further out of reach. Ghana, for her part, has also not been spared the effects of the Russia-Ukraine war. Let me state once again for the record that Ghana's history has been against great power domination of the affairs of the world. And that is the reason why Ghana led the fight for the liberation of the African continent from colonialism, imperialism, and the racist ideology of apartheid, and became one of the 5 initiators of the historic non-aligned movement. It is this same principle that led us to vote in the United Nations General Assembly in favor of the motion condemning the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and it is a position we will continue to hold. Great powers trampling on small nations is not something we welcome, and within our modest means, we will register our disapproval of that. Excellencies, in line with the protocol protecting the interests of Ghanaians abroad, government undertook a number of processes in partnership with its diplomatic missions, honorary consuls, and other stakeholders to evacuate Ghanaian nationals to safer zones. At the inception of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, some 220 Ghanaians resident in Ukraine safely exited the country, whilst government instituted relevant measures to facilitate the transportation, accommodation, feeding, medical support, and flights for the evacuated citizens. Some 460 students were transported to neighboring countries like Poland, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic. We thank all these countries for their help in our times of difficulty. Through collaboration with the International Organization for Migration, IOM, 253 of our compatriots were successfully evacuated from Ukraine for repatriation. The government also helped with the integration and placement of 100 students from the Eastern European country into Ghanaian public universities. On the matter of Ghanaians who got stranded in Dubai, I'm pleased to state that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, in conjunction with its Consulate General in Dubai, extended consular assistance to stranded compatriots at the detention center. They also helped to evacuate some 431 Ghanaian nationals, composed of 341 males, 88 females, and 2 children below the age of 3 from the medical center, as well as a good number of African migrants. Furthermore, the government, together with the IOM, continues to repatriate voluntary returnees from Libya. Last year, Ghana witnessed the repatriation of 754 voluntary returnees aboard 5 chartered flights from Libya. The exercise is expected to continue this year. Excellencies, like the rest of the world, we acknowledge the reality of the fact that our economy is in considerable difficulty. The budget drawn for the 2022 fiscal year was thrown out of gear, disrupting our balance of payments and debt sustainability, and further exposing the structural weaknesses of our economy. We have gone to the International Monetary Fund to repair in the short term our public finances and restore our balance of payments, while we continue to work on the medium to long-term structural changes that are at the heart of our goal of constructing a resilient, robust Ghanaian economy and building a Ghana beyond aid. Just as we managed to achieve a staff-level agreement with the fund in record time in December last year, whose terms we are systematically fulfilling, including the difficult but ultimately highly successful process of the domestic debt exchange program. I'm confident that with the cooperation we are receiving from members of the Paris Club and the People's Republic of China, which has sent a delegation from China's Exim Bank to Accra over the weekend to meet with officials of the Ministry of Finance, we shall be able to go to the board of the fund to conclude finally the agreement by the end of March. This will set the stage for the strong recovery of Ghana's economy. Needless to say, we would hope that all Ghana's friends would weigh in with words of support at the fund. As part of efforts to reset the economy and restore stability, government has also come up with a 7-point agenda aimed at restoring macroeconomic stability and accelerating economic transformation, as articulated in the post-COVID-19 program for economic growth. The program contains a set of goals which seek to achieve the following. 1, aggressively mobilize domestic revenue. 2, streamline and rationalize expenditures. 3, boost local productive capacity. 4, promote and diversify exports. 5, protect the poor and vulnerable. 6, expand digital and climate responsive physical infrastructure. And 7, implement structural and public sector reforms. We know there will be palpable reactions to the fiscal adjustments we intend to make in the coming years to sustain our stability, recovery, and eventual transformation. But as we have shown in other circumstances, we shall turn this crisis into an opportunity to resolve not just the short-term urgent problems, but the long-term structural problems that hamper the development of our economy. Excellencies, the debilitating effects of COVID-19 have more than ever heightened the high interconnectedness of our world. In this light, I want to use this occasion to reiterate Ghana's appreciation for the solidarity shown to our nation by your respective governments, and to express our gratitude for the support of countries such as Denmark, Egypt, France, Germany, Italy, India, Japan, Malaysia, Morocco, the Netherlands, Norway, the People's Republic of China, the Russian Federation, Serbia, Singapore, South Korea, Spain, Turkey, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, and others, through scholarship and training programs in the fields of governance, arts and culture, medicine, security, agriculture, technology, health, trade, water management, urban planning, leadership skills, food security, film, renewable energy, artificial intelligence, forensic science, financial management, cybersecurity, climate change, education, security, and law enforcement. The support through vaccines, PPEs, and various forms of collaboration during the pandemic was and continues to be highly appreciated. Excellencies, we remain mindful of our responsibility to contribute to the economic and political integration of our region and continent as a whole. Evidently, the potential for African countries to succeed together lies largely in inter-African trade. In the light of this is the successful operationalization of the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is located in Ghana. Following the coming into force of the AFCFTA on 1st January 2021, African countries have been racing in various directions to make the agreement a reality. It is worth noting that on Monday, 29th August 2022, government launched the AFCFTA Hub, a digital platform to facilitate trade on the continent. We want to consolidate the successes so far and with a sense of urgency, develop the signature solutions needed to deepen intra-African trade and spur impact investments needed to bring prosperity to the continent and its peoples. Excellencies, it is sad to note that insecurity on the continent, especially in West Africa, rising insurgency, terrorism, and violent extremism remains an issue of great concern. As part of efforts to enhance human security, whilst promoting democracy and good governance for sustainable development on the continent, Ghana hosted the African Union Reflection Forum on unconstitutional changes of government in Africa from 14th to 18th March 2022. This initiative contributed a lot to the success of the extraordinary summit of the AU held on 28 May 2022 in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, to consider possible measures to address the resurgence of military and unconstitutional changes of government on the continent. Ghana is committed to the collective continental effort to ensure peace and stability on the continent. As far as the interests of Africa are concerned, we seek collectively a peaceful and secure Africa based on the progressive ideals of fostering democracy, good governance, respect for human rights, social justice, and the rule of law. And it is for that we remain firm in our support of the sanctions regime imposed by our regional body, ECOWAS, with the backing of the AU, against the military governments that have issued out of the unconstitutional changes of government in Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso. We equally aspire for an Africa with a strong cultural identity, common heritage, shared values and ethics, whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of African peoples, especially its women and youth, and caring for its children. As we work together to deepen multilateralism around the globe, it is my hope that we would also build the right bridges and forge enduring partnerships with the rest of the world. Indeed, Ghana, recognizing her unique position as the location for 75% of the slave dungeons built on the west coast of Africa, through which the slaves, caught up in the barbaric, inhumane transatlantic slave trade, were transported, continues to extend a hand of welcome back home to Africans in the diaspora, as we did in 2019 during the year of return. That is the rationale of Ghana's initiative of Beyond the Return, which is building on the considerable success of the year of return and the renewed enthusiasm around Africans building Africa together. We want to help make Africa the place for investment, progress, and prosperity, and not from where our youth flee in the hope of accessing the mirage of a better life in Europe, Asia, or the Americas. Strengthening the pillars of multilateralism requires in our time above all the reforms of the institutions of global governance, both financial and political. These institutions, established in the post-Second World War period, were designed to manage essentially the problems of post-war reconstruction of Europe. Clearly, the world has moved on significantly from that position and deserves reformed institutions that will better serve the interests of mankind today. An obvious case in point is the reform of the United Nations Security Council, which the nations of Africa have been calling for ever since the formulation in March 2005 of the Eswatini Consensus, which sets out the common African position on UN reform and envisages the greater participation of the African peoples in the decision-making process of the principal organ for the maintenance of international peace and security, the UN Security Council, whose composition was decided in 1945 in San Francisco, at a time when the overwhelming majority of the African peoples were still under the colonial yoke and not represented there. It is encouraging, though, that important world leaders like President Joe Biden of the United States of America and President Emmanuel Macron of the French Republic have now boldly joined this bandwagon of reform. And hopefully, that bandwagon will also be embraced by the other leaders of the P5 in the Security Council. The time has come for movement on this critical issue. I cannot end today without expressing the solidarity of the Ghanaian people with the brotherly people of our great neighbor, the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as they encounter significant challenges in the ongoing national elections for new national leadership, and hope that these challenges will be resolved peacefully in accordance with due process, and that the will of the Nigerian people will be duly manifested. The impact on the cause of democracy in West Africa, and indeed in the entire continent of Africa, by the events in Nigeria cannot be overemphasized. We wish them the best of luck and God's blessings. The First Lady and my family join me in wishing you and your families well, and above all, success in your duties as accredited representative of your country and international organizations to the Republic of Ghana. May I then, respectfully, ask you to join me in standing up, in raising your glasses. You don't have any glasses? Then I'll do it for you. To toast the prosperity and good health of your leaders, your countries, your families, and our continued cooperation and friendship this year. Happy New Year. Efisiapa, Afi, and may God bless us all. I thank you for your attention.